If you follow the last 2 weeks' content, you will see that we talked about this new book that I'm just launching called Rockstar, and it's all about magnifying the greatness in your staff during turbulent times and change. Particularly this version is for healthcare, although there are some other industries that I'm having conversations with about them having their own version of Rockstar. So what Rockstar leadership looks like in their industry. So let's talk about the messy middle, because whether you are experiencing the messy middle of this situation in healthcare or you are going through other challenging times, it's right in the middle of a crisis that things can feel like they are never going to get better. In fact, we often get overly hopeful at this particular time that things are going to get better on the other side. And what that does is it sets us up for this sense of utter fear, failure, and disappointment. Because in my long tenure in organizational development, of the over 100 teams that or the folks that I managed would go in and support when these teams were falling apart, stressed, butting heads, unproductive, people fleeing out the door, one of the biggest contributing factors to that was that people assumed that things would get better once fill in the blank. Once the project was over, once we had relocated, once we had hired more staff, once we had been able to launch this new project or product. The tricky thing is that messy middle, it gives people a real sense of focus. And on the other side of it, when we've told ourselves that as long as we can get through this difficult time, things will be better, it means that we haven't put the energy into how do we get back to a place of stability and comfort and collegiality on the other side. So here, of course, the number one thing that I can recommend to you is as you're starting to navigate your way through this time, definitely redouble your recognition efforts. This is where people need to feel valued, heard, and appreciated most of all. Number two, this is your time for continuous improvement. This is now when everybody's thinking about all the things that haven't worked well, and people are motivated to make sure that it doesn't stay broken for long. Otherwise, you'll just keep on going and putting up with an inefficient status quo. Number three, this is a time for people to take a breath. I know it doesn't maybe feel that way, but we need to practice wellness right now. You've got some gurus in your organization, you're in your team of people who practice wellness really well outside of work. Let them be the resource to help their team, teach yoga classes during the day, give some suggestions about breathing techniques, how to be more mindful, have them share some recipe ideas, whatever those are, lean on those experts. And any resources that you have access to, remind people of them. The last thing that we want to do is put all of our eggs in the after basket, especially if I think about it from a pandemic standpoint. When we truly flatten the curve and we've got the vaccination and everything's supposed to be back to normal, we're going to have a lot of exhausted people. We're going to have a lot of people who are frustrated or unhappy or disappointed about how layoffs happened. We're going to have a lot of people who are going to be resentful about how some people had to work so hard and other people didn't work very hard at all. We are going to have some people who are dealing with the fallout of having tried to homeschool their kids and not be able to get to some people's funerals and other very challenging personal stuff that's been going on. We need to remember the individual at the center of all of this, and that we're all perfectly flawed, and that is perfectly okay. If we expect and hope that that time will be better afterwards, we're probably not effectively planning what our recovery strategy is going to be. So if you would like some additional strategy on how to make sure you are in a good recovery position, in addition to the tools that I've shared here, why don't you reach out to me, Sarah with an H at greatnessmagnified.com. In the meantime, why don't you share this with some of your colleagues that you want to proactively make sure that you are helping people get through this challenging time. And definitely always subscribe to this channel so that you never miss a single episode. Take care, my friends. Thank you for what you're doing to get us through this challenging time.